Gravity's Rainbow, Part 1, Chapter 10 A Musical Revelation. An analysis of Gravity's Rainbow, Part 1, Chapter 10, The Kenosha Kid, Slothrop at the Roseland Ballroom, Down the Toilet. Jazz holds unplayed notes, rhythms that move distinctly, and melodies that often feel incomplete because something is missing, though that something always returns in whatever form, whether it's later in the same piece, in another rendition by the same musician, or by a cover sometime down the road. Or often these notes or blank spaces between hold that meaning over one's head that can be filled in with whatsoever one chooses. They move along, the pace increases, a staccato hits where you least expect, and then a flare, some high-pitched note out of a trumpet, brings you back, letting you know that yes, this is exactly how it should be. This, in turn, is exactly how Tyrone Slothrop thinks, and how language works. The Kenosha Kid is language's derivative of jazz, or jazz is music's derivative of language. The same phrase can be turned over, meanings entirely changed, from a signature to a dialogue, to an exclamation, to a fragment within a sentence. They vary in power, humor, and importance, based on anything from punctuation to the surrounding vocabulary. It is just like jazz, where these missing notes or minor variations can rework the piece entirely, though the language stays the same. Turns out that Slothrop is going over these variations through a drug-induced stupor, not one of his own doing, of a, quote, 10% sodium amytal dilution, 1 cc at a time, as needed, end quote. While being dosed by Pisces, seems like Pointsman or someone at the White Visitation has finally got their hands on what they've wanted, he is questioned on what else but his experience in race relations. I mean, he is America, right? So what else is there to question him about? But he is us as well, the hopefully socially conscious American. He has those unfortunate tendencies built into his subconscious, which allow his mind to flow towards stereotypes and early 20th century minstrel show dialect, but he knows it's wrong. He knows they are simply trying to draw out the worst in him. He pleads, quote, "Come on, you guys, don't make it too," end quote. The scene switches to memory, sometime back in his past, the Roseland Ballroom, New York City. Slothrop, white as can be, walks through the jazz hall, noticing black bartenders, black musicians, black shoe shiners, all serving and playing music to, quote, white college boys hollering requests, end quote. The college boys call out to the musicians for requests, insisting they play what they want to hear, a clear theme being set immediately as Slothrop walks upstairs into the restroom to vomit up his meal and miscellanea. And with it goes down his harp, his harmonica, and sole tool of artistic expression, the low-brow instrument to the high-brow tools of jazz, soon to be historically exploited and pillaged for music more digestible by people with taste just down the hall. And so, what is there to do for Slothrop but dive in after the only tool he has, no matter how tacky of one, or how hilarious of one, it may be? Before he makes any decision to dive, we switch over to Red, Malcolm X before he took on that name, listening as the band begins to play Cherokee, a song covered and improvised by numerous black American jazz musicians, now only to have the, quote, pale Harvard boys and their dates, end quote, dance on. Dance to what, though? Because they seem to miss the point. This isn't simple music that you two-step to or lose yourself in a simple rhythm and melody. It is more than that. It is, quote, getting into some, really weird shit, end quote. As we hear staccatos coming at rapid speed, mimicking the sounds of bullets and death, long-held high notes that pierce your mind, creating a sound which makes your face squeeze together to hold back every emotion that single note can extract. It is finding every possibility in a song already known, deviating off the beaten path into the subconscious mind of the player, they who have experienced the pains that allow these notes to flow bleeding out at the end of the brass. And the Harvard boys dance on, unaware, to mere rhythm. Slothrop, though we know through his previous pleas that he does not want this to be a part of him, but given all that he represents, we know it must be a part of him, has an embedded racism that he is about to explore. All the shit, the literal and metaphorical shit that is, which makes up America and its conscious and subconscious bigotries. And who to egg him on to these self discoveries and reckonings but Malcolm X himself? As in reality, of course, Malcolm X really did force America to reckon with its inherent bigotries, though we know how that ended for him when they believed his methods may be a little too effective. Slothrop dips down into the pipes, further into the toilet, admitting he has always known his personal shit has been there, and even begins to recognize specific pieces, that of the Harvard Fellows, his friends, Jack Kennedy. And what Slothrop realizes, maybe if to us Slothrop were for a moment holding a mask of Pynchon himself over his face, is that if he does find the harp, his method of artistic expression after this journey of self exploration, it might just be easier to play. As a flood comes down upon him, he realizes he has, quote, nowhere to run, end quote. It washes over him, leading to a form of realization and clarity. Quote, at some point, the brown dusk around him has begun to lighten, and he sees people he knows, inside shells of old, what seems to be fine packed masonry ruins, weathered cell after cell, many of them roofless. End quote. He is witnessing the poor and destitute in their shelter from the dying world that they are a part of, and knows that, quote, something else has been terribly at this country, end quote. He knows it is dying as shit now clings to his skin, his hair, his nostrils. Pynchon's solipsism comes out in the guise of Crutchfield, another figure placing the whole of a society on themselves, the only westward man, the only president and assassin, a character to represent them all. Pynchon here is admitting that his representation of Slothrop as America, while simultaneously using Slothrop as a stand in for himself, or any character to represent anything, is a solipsistic act of creation. It is reductive and will never wholly represent all that America, or again, anything, has to show for itself. But, quote, half an arc's better than none, end quote. So in this case, Crutchfield comes out as the old school westward man, the destroyer and colonizer, slaughtering whatever may be in his wake, holding on to true conscious bigotry, that of a far higher order than Slothrop's, and his partner, Wapo, always comes hand in hand with Crutchfield's colonization and westward expansion, for Wapo is greed itself, the capitalist system brought up in the wake of destruction. He wears, quote, chaps of imported gazelle hide that Crutchfield bought for him in Eagle Pass, a shiny opera hat of Japanese silk, end quote, as he and Crutchfield trample the natural and traditional lands of those who lived there before either of them ever stepped foot. Solipsism, of course, to put all of this on two individuals, but accurate nonetheless. Slothrop returns, having witnessed all this shit, though this time having taken the form of two literal people. He sees that there was only one of each who had represented the necessary forces, the characters of the story. He returns for one final connection, a realization that all those language games and their reorganizations of patterns and meanings mimicked jazz and its hidden or rapid notes and changing improvisations, which all in turn mimic the individual's fragmented examination of their own, and their world's own, past. Perhaps it's an argument to look deeper into these complex arts to allow the brain to make connections it never would have before. Maybe listening to jazz that at first may not even seem musical, or reading sentences that many would deem pretentious nonsense, can actually open up our minds to perceive the world in ways we had once also thought to be insane. But here they are now, clear as day, clear as Slothrop making his way out of the flood. That's the end of part 1, chapter 10. So up next will be part 1, chapter 11, which is quite a short part. So I will see you then for that one. Thank you.